The Early Arrival of Miss Evangeline, written by Christina Curtin, June 7th, 2020. Apologies out of the gate if this post is a little haphazard and seems like it was written by a sleep-deprived walking milk truck who can't remember anything unless it's written down on a piece of paper or emailed to herself. This post may seem less coherent than my others, but I wanted to write down Evie's birth story soon before all the details get lost in this brain of mine, and I forget the pain, guilt, and sheer joy of welcoming my third daughter into this crazy world we live in right now. Evangeline's birth story is a song of sun and water. I wish I could say ice and fire, because then I'd be like Daenerys Targaryen in the Game of Thrones with my 3 offspring, but that bitch went crazy in the end, and most of her kids died, so I guess I shouldn't try to compare. Anyways, here's the story of Miss Evangeline Maeve's birth, 3 weeks earlier than planned. At the beach. Prepping for Memorial Day weekend, we headed to a nearby beach to enjoy some sun, waves, and company of our good friends who have a daughter the same age as Scarlett. We hung out at the beach until the sun hit the spot in the sky I absolutely love, about a 45-degree angle from the horizon prior to sunset. I got some sun that day. I didn't get burnt because I've been pretty good about reapplying since we moved to Florida. My belly, since it was raised up like its own little mountain, tanned more than the rest of my body. My stomach is legit like 4 shades darker than the rest of me. Point of telling you all this is that we were in the sun all day, basically, enjoying the heat and the ocean. The next day, Saturday, I decided to go lounge in our pool for a bit. It was a nice day out again. Sorry to my Pennsylvania family and friends. I did my time in the Berg and moved to Florida because I know full well in the depths of my soul how bad the weather sucks in Pittsburgh. Please all move here. I miss you, but I don't miss anything else except for Beato's Pizza. Anyways, in the pool, floating in a raft where most of my body is submerged underwater, except for the tops of my thighs, since they are massive in their own right, and Mount St. Belly, which popped out and soaked up the sun. I floated there for about an hour, trying to meditate while absolutely enjoying the lack of gravity. Laying on your back is a luxury that you don't really appreciate unless you are pregnant. I felt really good and really relaxed. And, oh, what the hell, I'll admit it, I peed in my pool. I know a lot of people do it, and a lot of people hate to admit it. It's my pool. I can do what I want. I thought I was just peeing in my pool, which I soon realized was not only pee, but in fact, something more. I get out of the pool to take Scarlett down to the lagoon that is in our housing plan. Again, move to Florida, folks. You only live once. As I got out of the water, I felt a whoosh in my bathing suit bottoms. Ew. And oh, fucking shit. What the hell was that? I look, and it wasn't only pee that was built up in my bladder and escaping my pregnant body on its own. No, it was a jellyfish-looking thing that was reminiscent of the 1958 horror movie, The Blob. I won't get any more graphic on that front because I know some of you are holding back your upchuck reflex right now. The jelly blob was my mucus plug. A bit of panic starts in the back of my mind. After the plug fell out, I called my doc. She didn't seem concerned, said it was normal and labor could be weeks off still. Doc instructed me to keep an eye on it, no shit, and if I was concerned, that I should go to the hospital. I hung up and immediately started Googling because I needed my internet doctor to give me more info. I felt like a plug falling out of my body was a bigger deal than she was making it. Dr. Internet, however, gave me reassurance that labor in fact could be weeks off. I should only be concerned if contractions started to rear up and be consistent. If that happened, then shit was hitting the fan. Of course, shit hit the fan. Contractions started soon after I finished getting my doctorate in mucus plugs from Google. Nothing major at first, but dear Lord, it didn't take long for them to increase in intensity. I tried walking them off. I tried breathing exercises and meditation, but in the span of 1 hour, they were so bad that I knew we had to head to the hospital. I had planned to get ice cream that day because it sounded really good and I wanted it bad. The line was seriously 6 cars deep. What the fuck? There's a global pandemic, folks. Go home so I can get my ice cream. I wanted ice cream. This may be my last meal. I really wanted to load up on calories and sugar one last time. Cookie dough, chocolate. I wanted it in my belly before this baby came out of it. The pain was too intense to wait, though. I reluctantly told Vince to leave the line and gave up my 500-calorie creamy dreams. Life isn't fair sometimes. A few minutes later, we pull up to the hospital. Neither of us know where to go because we haven't been there before. We couldn't tour due to the pandemic, and thankfully hadn't had a reason to visit before this day. Surprisingly, Scarlett hasn't seriously injured herself since we moved down here. Knock on wood. We pull up to the front, and there are two people sitting outside the main entrance at a table for COVID checks prior to hospital entry. I get out of the car in sheer agony. My face had to look awful. As I waddle up to the table, another employee comes running out of the hospital with a hopeful look on his face. "Are you from Jimmy John's?" You gotta be fucking kidding me, right? Do I look like I am here to deliver hoagies? I was tempted to tell this moron off, but before I could manage to breathe out any words, the one lady at the desk said, "No, she's not from Jimmy John's. She's in labor." So grateful for people with intelligence in this day and age. They may be unicorns. The one woman goes in and gets me a wheelchair and proceeds to whisk me off to the ER. First, we had our temps scanned and had to answer all of the intake questions. We were given masks to wear, which you can imagine is really awful to have suctioned on your face while breathing through the pains of contraction. I was trying hard to not pass out. Once in the room, they take my vitals and inform me that all of this is happening because I am severely dehydrated. Turns out, you can't bask in the rays of the Florida sun or soak your body in salt water like I did the past 2 days without gulping down a shit ton of water. The nurse informed me that my blood was like tar because of the lack of water. Of course, after hearing this, the guilt started to eke in. My inner voice, called Nancy, started making me feel like a royal piece of shit. Because I didn't hydrate myself properly, the contractions happened. I caused early labor. I cried because I was so ashamed of myself. The contractions were so close together that I was already 7 centimeters dilated, and the nurses were rushing around like murder hornets trying to get everything done in time so I could still get an epidural. Oh, sweet God, I was scared of not having the epidural. The pain was already so intense. I couldn't imagine it getting any worse. I was scared of being in even more pain. Not only was there the threat of no epidural, but also the chance that I wouldn't get to hold the baby once she was born. They require all pregnant women to get a test for the virus. This involves shoving a 10-inch long cotton swab up your nose to basically swipe your brain tissue. It's great. Apparently, the test results take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours to come back. If we didn't get the results back in time, or if I tested positive for COVID, they couldn't let me hold the baby. Yes, let's just add another layer onto my anxiety level, please. I wasn't already stressed out enough. I was scared that I would be in agonizing pain delivering with a mask on. I was scared that the COVID test wouldn't come back in time and I wouldn't get to hold my baby. I was scared something would be wrong with her because she was coming early. I was feeling guilty that I caused all of this to happen and I didn't have fucking ice cream. I had to cry. All of this emotion had to come out. I was scared and guilty and in pain. Oh yeah, and I had labor shakes. My entire body was shaking for at least 2 hours due to all the hormone changes and adrenaline spikes. I couldn't stop, which did make it interesting when they were finally trying to put my epidural in. You really shouldn't move for that because shit can go wrong if they hit something. It was fun trying not to move. So let's add the fear of being paralyzed to my list of things that gave me anxiety during labor. It's time. At last, the epidural was in. I stopped shaking and the pain went away. It felt glorious. The nurse came and told me that my test results were back and I didn't have the Rona. They pumped me full of fluids to combat the dehydration. Things were looking up. After a couple hours and a shot of Pitocin later, it was time to start pushing. with the mask on, of course. Thankfully, all it took was 3 pushes. 7 minutes total of delivery time, and out shot Miss Evangeline. Vince wasn't surprised that I basically sneezed and she came out. Apparently, my lady parts aren't what they used to be 20 years ago. Whatever, I'll take a hallway-sized birth canal if it means delivering is that friggin' easy. They placed her on my chest and told me I could take off my mask. I looked in her eyes, which were wide open, and fell in love. She came into this world earlier than she was supposed to, but Miss Evangeline looked at me with quiet, wise eyes, and I knew she was here right at the right time. Vince called her his little doe because she was so alert but quiet, just observing us. Despite being early, Evie didn't have any issues. Aside for some amniotic fluid that was still left in her belly since my loose birth canal didn't squeeze it out of her, this caused her to cough it up, choke on it, and turn blue in the process. This is very common, but I didn't know that. Needless to say, I freaked out the first time it happened. I called the nurse in a full-blown panic, afraid she was dying. But we suctioned out the fluid with a syringe, patted her on the back, and she was good as new. I am so grateful she is healthy. Grateful that the labor turned out the way it did. Grateful that we have neighbors and friends to watch my Gianna and Scarlett or bring us meals. The support and love we've had the past 2 weeks has been wonderful. So that's it. That's the story of Evangeline's birth. Thanks for listening all the way through. Seriously, I know that was a lot, and it was written off about 4 hours of non-sequential sleep. Stay tuned for more posts about this little lady. I know they are coming. Epilogue. Her name. Oh, and her name. If you've been following my blog, you know how much thought I put into this lady's name. We were down to 2 contenders before she was born. Vince really didn't like either name I was noodling over, and Evangeline was the one he disliked the least. So that's how it ultimately won. But here's how I got the name Evangeline. I fell in love with the name Evangeline after hearing it years ago in The Princess and the Frog. Evangeline was the name of the star in the sky that a firefly falls in love with. He sings a song to her in everything. The name itself means messenger of good news. This little nugget is definitely going to be our good child. I am sending that vibe now into her and willing it to happen. I also love writing the capital letter E, which was a requirement for the name I gave her. Since I would be writing her name a lot, I wanted to like the letter it started with. And finally, we found out her gender on Christmas Eve, surrounded by all our family up in Pennsylvania. The fact that we can nickname her Evie or Eve was a nice reflection of that memory. The middle name had to be short in syllables because Evangeline is so long, and Vince loves his Irish heritage, so I wanted to find a middle name that honored that. Maeve, which means song in Celtic, honors his heritage, goes back to the fact that we named her after a song, and kind of reflects the fact that she was born in May. I've been calling her Evie Eve, like Eazy-E the rapper, Miss Evie, and Evangeline, only when I sing the song to her. Welcome to this crazy and sane world, little one. Get ready for one hell of a ride. It's going to be fun. I love you always and forever. Your mommy, aka the boob.